So we do have options here to go through and do CNode pooling. So what a CNode pool is that we will go through and we'll define, when we create our VIP addresses, we will go through and we will limit which will, rather than saying all the CNodes, we'll go through and say, hey, no, this VIP pool is only going to reside on this particular set of CNodes or this other particular set of CNodes. Why would you want to go through and do this? Well, one option is that you want to do workload isolation. So if you've got prod and QA on the same cluster, you don't want to have your QA jobs affecting your prod network. So you go through, you segment those likely physically off, and you have some certain CNodes that are dedicated to doing prod workload. Other CNodes are handling I/O for just the dev workload. For that. You could also go through, you may have reasons where it's different networking topologies, different physical networking connections for that, or different physical network types, where you may have some CNodes that are Ethernet based, some CNodes that are InfiniBand based, that you want to go through and utilize those. So you go through and segment those across. However, regardless of how you do the segmenting on the front end with the CNode pools or the VIP pools, each one of the CNodes has access to the entirety of the backend storage. So it is very flexible. This not only comes into play with the VIP pools themselves, but also when we start talking about multi-tenancy, it does come into play with multi-tenancy as well. So if we wish to go through and we wish to configure CNode pools, all that we have to do is that in the VIP pool creation, rather than having all CNodes selected by default, we would just toggle that switch and then select which CNodes we wish to use for this group here. So if I only want to have 2 CNodes, I would just go through and select the 2 CNodes I want, click move them over here, and it would show up in this. I think in the newer versions of software, this is an older screenshot from 4.7. 5.1 has these sides reversed. So it makes a little more sense of how people normally work, to go through and have the selected ones on the right rather than on the left. But you get the idea for that. We just select which CNodes we want and put them in there. There are also options here to go through and select which physical port on those northbound NICs is going to be used for this CNode. Not as common, especially in large clusters, for this to do. Typically, you'd have both NICs both ports on the physical NIC are dedicated, or both Ethernet, or both dedicated to the same purpose, or not segmented in any way. But in certain other situations, we do have options where we can run one of the ports on a physical NIC in Ethernet mode and one of them in InfiniBand mode. So we can go through and select that, or you can go through, depending on what your physical networking is, you can go through and physically split that particular physical NIC into using just one port or the right. With this here, it does say left or right. This will always correspond to physically, as you're looking at the back of the CNode, looking physically at the card. Is it the left port or is it the right port on any one particular card? There's no having to figure out, is this port 0, is this port 1? When we go through and we bring on new hardware, even if there are cases where you may have, like in quad port servers, where some of them will have all the canisters oriented in the same way. Others may have canisters that are oriented upside down compared to their other side. With our software, we're aware of those types of CNodes, and we will go through and physically say, yes, this is going to be the left port, or this is going to be the right port, regardless of what the physical orientation is of those canisters within a particular CBOX type system.